bit on the north.
Oh, ugly one, 70
That's Caldwell House.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
But it may be...
Either discussion
sorry for Kent, that may be worth... I'm sure Mark and that would keep that in mind, because that's the point that talking about
Councillor
that part.
Brief comment, Mr. Chairman. I really like how people from Sydney come up here and tell us what's important to us about our heritage. Doesn't sit real well with me.
Oh, but they're not. They're trying to tear it down.
Money.
Any other discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous again. Thank you. That concludes the Planning and Development Committee meeting. I'll call on Councillor Miletto to conduct the Employment and Economic Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'd like to open the Economic Development Policy Committee meeting, day being the 5th of October, and time now being 7:28 p.m. Declarations of interest. Any councillor have any peculiar interest, significant non-peculiar interest, or less than significant non-peculiar interest? I think at the beginning of the meeting nobody identified any.
No.
We'll move to sections 2. Item 2.1, minutes of the Economic Development
I'll move
Committee.
that for you.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kidd and seconded by Councillor Munro. Is there any discussions on this item? Being none, I'll put the motion. All for, show of hands, please. None against. Declare the motion is carried. Council, that concludes the Economic Development Policy Committee meeting. Time now being 7:29 p.m. I would like to call on Councillor Whitten to conduct the infrastructure policy.
Just before we do, Councillor Whitten, do you mind if I just ask the CEO to...
Thanks, yeah. Mr. Mayor. I'm told possibly that we're now live streaming. We are not. Yes, we are. Okay.
Hold it, there's a bit of...
We just get confirmation. We are live streaming. We are live streaming.
2 up.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Whitten, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll open the agenda, the Infrastructure Policy Committee for the 5th of October at 7:30, and there are no declarations of pecuniary interest unless some councillors have changed their mind. Committee minutes, 2.1, minutes of the meeting of the City of Orange Traffic Committee held on the 14th of September. It's been moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion on the minutes? Councillor Duffy.
Well, mine's mainly for the Traffic Committee, Mr. Chairman, as regards to...
We are in Traffic Committee, yep.
Road up at road where it's 81 end and 50 this end.
What street?
Probably a matter of rising, but I'm happy to just...
What about what road?
What street, Councillor Duffy?
What road? No one.
I forget the name. It's the one where the Sherrillee subdivision is. I just forgot to write down the name of it.
Good road.
Give the to Evan and
Sherrillee
Road or
Sherrillee Road, I think it is. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're gonna
one end and 50 the other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to raise it with the CEO and the chair of Traffic Committee.
Sherrillee Road.
Sure.
Any further discussion on the minutes? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Item 3.1, current works.
Happy to move the
Moved by Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion on Nugent?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I've had a number of questions about the car park in Peasley Street. It's, I think, partly concreted, and it looks like the rest is going to be, I think it's going to be covered with gravel. I think I've asked a question about this car park before, and it was a temporary car park. But people have been asking me what the role of that car park will be. Is it permanent? Is it temporary? Does it have any impact on a possible crossing of March Street, rail crossing of March Street, just what the vision of that car park actually is.
Greenham, over to you.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you for your questions. It is a temporary car park at the moment, so other than the concrete section, that was going to be made permanent. And
There's no more concreting.
No more concrete planned. We are having trouble with the gravels there and the amount of wet weather we've had. So that section is currently closed off to the public, and we're just waiting for it to dry out before we work it any further. It won't have any effect on the proposed crossing, so there'll still be access available to that area.
And usage of that car park, what are we anticipating? Who will be actually sort of using that car park? Is it currently open for use?
It's currently open for use. There's not a lot of use in there at the moment, but hopefully with the conservatorium we'll have quite a bit of overflow parking in that area.
And I guess there hasn't been a lot of people parking in the CBD recently.
Yeah, you would like to add something?
So just to clarify what Mr. Granham said, the DA approval for the Conservatorium Planetarium nominates a certain number of parks in there. So that's the first use.
That's the first use.
As Ian said, anything else is...
Now, whilst Mr. Greenham's at the stand, does any other councillors have any questions they'd like to raise? So running backwards and forwards. No other questions?
Thank you.
You got something, Councillor Dunn?
No. The CEO addressed the issue that I was going to raise about what's needed as far as the planetarium conservatorium.
All righty. There being no further questions? Madam? Sorry?
Road maintenance. The last probably month and a bit, there's a lot of roads still in. I'm talking about.
Talk into your microphone, please, Councillor Duffy. I just noticed your light's not coming on. We're
It's
streaming.
difficult to
we're streaming,
understand
yeah.
you when you've got your mask off, let alone on.
You can talk into your microphone, please.
I'm talking about Holman Way and that area, and all those trips there. Patching work over it, and even when you go down Orchard Grove Road, where we have done patchwork on roads, but it's fallen apart right where that speed hump is there on Orchard Grove Road. But I'm just wondering when we actually really make a mark on some of those roads, and especially when you're down the end of Orchard Grove Road, you've got the circle turning there, which seems to be falling apart as well.
The weather's been a challenge, Councillor Duffy, but I'll let Mr.
Weather has been a challenge, and we've also, if you read the start of the road maintenance report, we're talking about voting a special amount in there for heavy patching. So that's where we actually treat the pavement, not just patch the surface as such, the wearing surface. So there's nominally $150,000 being put up as a heavy patching vote in the quarterly reviews. So once we've got that, we'll start addressing some of those areas, but most areas we'll simply maintain the service until we can get round to a reconstruction or a reseal. We'll follow those through. You'll find most major roads that we've reconstructed in recent times, so Barrendong Way and Cargo Road are holding up fairly well. So that we are getting around those ones and addressing those. So, and same with some of the works that we've done recently on Forest Road, holding up fairly well as well.
Chair, can I suggest, Mr. Graham, that I think with our communications crew, that'd be a good story to put out. Conditions we had this year, particularly this winter, were exactly the same as we had in 2016. Well, anywhere had the same problem, especially if you go down to Bath. Because we've had the incredible amount of weather, and when we damage, so it could be just to let people know, and we're getting around as quickly as we possibly can. And in fact, it'd be even a major rehabilitation of anything wouldn't be able to be done if you think of after dry weather to do it.
That's a good point.
I just follow up there on that question, Director, is that, and the Mayor made reference of 2016, but in 2016, I think we finished up about.
Extra crews out now.
We've had 5 crews.
We've got extra crews out now.
Up to 5 crews working at any one time, just doing patching work
Now,
arrangements.
fast.
I haven't got his glasses on. Councillor Munro, you were going to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. Well, while you're standing there, I wanted to, while we're on the roads, I just want to talk about Edward Street. Work that we've done up near the sale yards, and planks or the trucks on the street. I'm wondering, I want to foreshadow a motion for the next meeting. Back to 10-tonne weight limit on the road between Electrolux and I think the residents are well within their rights to have a little bit of a whinge about all the trucks that go up there.
Councillor Munro, I'll get sacked if I don't do my job properly. Have you got a question that you'd like to raise? Rather,
So
it's great that you're raising a motion for Edward Street. That's unreal.
I just like councillors to keep that in mind. I'll talk about that at the next council meeting. But while Greenham's here, I'd like him to maybe have a little catch up with you and have a chat about how that could probably happen.
Always
That
available.
one that should go back to traffic committee also.
Yeah, could be. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for Mr Greenham or anything about this item? Thank you, Mr Greenham. I'd just like to congratulate the council and the staff for the beautification program in McNamara Lane. There was a lot of debate about that, but come up really, really well. Looks great. Good place, and there's a lot of, on social media there, people have been posting a lot of old pictures of Lord's Place, how it originally was with the gardens in the middle. Great work. It's coming up very well. We just need some warm weather now and allow people to get out and about.
Nobody.
All right. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. I'll close the infrastructure meeting at around 20 to 8, and I will ask...
I will do that, Councillor Whitten. I'll do the sport and rec.
Oh, you'll do the sport and rec? Okay. I'll ask the Mayor to do sport and rec. Thank you.
I'd like to open the Sports and Recreation Policy Committee meeting on the 5th of October with the time being 7:20. 7:20. There are no declarations of interest that were shown before. Is there any now? To the committee minutes, item 2.1 is the sporting grounds operational support.
Mr Chairman.
Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor Munro. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting with the time being 7:40 seconds.
39.
Call Councillor Nugent to conduct the Environmental Sustainability Committee.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting of the 5th of October with the time being 7:41. There were no declarations of interest. I presume there are none. So we'll move on to item 2.1, minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Committee of the 6th of April, moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Munro. Are there any comments or questions or discussion on this item? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. Passed unanimously. Item 2.2 are again the minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Committee, but this time the 2nd of July,
I'll move those again.
2021, moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor
I'll
Duffy.
move.
Any discussion or comments on this item? I'd just like to note that the legacy report that the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee has put together on page 31, and in the recommendations we're being asked to acknowledge that legacy report, which I think is a useful document, not just for ESCI, but maybe for all community committees under the next term of council. Just some suggestions about continuous improvement, I guess. That report actually went to a subsequent meeting of ESCI on the 24th of September, and there's been some minor modifications. So, yeah, I think it'll come back to council again on the 2nd of November, or the first meeting in November, just with some minor modifications. But yeah, I think it is a useful report that will feed into the next term of council. Unless there's any other comments or questions on that item, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against, and again, it's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.3 are the minutes of the Companion Animals Community Committee held on the 13th of September. Moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Munro. Councillor Miletto, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. Just in regards to items 3.1, 3.2, certainly acknowledge that council have increased and improved the signage at that location. I guess my question comes regards to which has been brought to my attention, and that is confusion around Google searches. When people put in a Google search for that area with regards to leash-free areas, there appears to be some confusion coming up that it doesn't clearly identify the area. I'm just wondering whether the council staff can make a comment on that.
Unless you have a comment, we might take that on notice. I'll look at Google myself. We'll come back to you, Councillor. Thank you.
It has been raised a couple of times before, Councillor Miletto, and it's a good point that you raised. At one point, it was showing Gosling Creek as being a leash-free area, whereas it's actually in Bloomfield Park, but now it has changed, but it's still not strictly accurate, I think, because it shows that you can walk animals around Gosling Creek, whereas my understanding is that there's no animals allowed in that area at all. So, and we did discuss it, I think, briefly at the last at that meeting, and it probably still needs to be clarified, like through Google, to clarify what the status is in relation to dogs being on leash, off leash, not in, and what areas they're allowed.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think again that's a good one for our comms team, because so many people use it out there. Every time I've been out there with the stuck into me and says, well, hold it, no you can, and I keep saying no you can't here, because I might even have the dog on the lead, but that's in the Gosling Creek part, and I try and explain to them down there, and they'll give you all the reasons why they can't go there. No, well, I think it needs clearer signage, but I think perhaps something that we press or whatever, because it is high traffic areas.
I think you're exactly right, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is that comms have addressed it previously. The issue is with the confusion with what Google is telling people, and there are people who are turning up out there, and then there is verbal arguments between some of the people out there who are walking their dogs and others who want to ride their bikes or walk with their children, and there seems to be probably a lack of understanding based on the confusion which is through Google. So we can have a look at that. That'd be great.
So some issues in terms of the signage, I think, on that the pathway along the northern edge of Bloomfield Park, along the sporting fields. It does, at the top, talk about being a leash-free area. Then down the bottom, sort of smaller sign, it sort of talks about it being no dogs must be on leash if they're on the path. So I think maybe it's, there's a few issues that we need to sort of clarify to give people more certainty about what you can and can't do in different parts of that. I think so, because it is such a well-used and popular part of the part of Orange.
Only really recently, since we've been talking about this leash-free area at Bloomfield Park, etc., I believe the majority of people differentiate Bloomfield Park and Gosling Creek Reserve.
I think you're right.
Or they just think it's one area.
Yeah.
That's where some of the confusion comes
Yes.
from.
Yes.
So I don't know what we can do. That road in the middle,
Bargwana.
Arguana Road, how we can more clearly define, educate people that it's actually two different areas. I think that's where a lot of quite innocent.
Yeah. I think you're right, Councillor Turner, that people just see it as one continuous.
I did
area.
myself for quite some time. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that point. Yes, Councillor Duffy.
Just a point of clarification. I could have had a look at the dog run or wherever it is on the Forbes Road there. I do notice that there's a lot of still a lot of activity on Wirrawena Oval of people with dogs running off leads. Or the impact of they're up on the Forbes Road was to move those people from there up to there, and it doesn't seem to be very well signage driving past.
Through Mr. Chair, we didn't do the Forbes Road one to get them off Rowena. We did it to have another one, I think was my understanding from those days. Yeah.
Yep.
But the signpost, we'll take that on board. I'll go and have a look.
And there's also recommendations in here about including leash-free areas. It's a new area. I think it is being used, but it will be used more and more over time as word of mouth spreads.
Really heavily used now.
Which is great. And and there is a recommendation about including leash-free areas in maps of Orange, so that we get the word out there more as we go along. There's also a new leash-free area over at Ridley Oval, which is great because that's serving a couple of different purposes in terms of stopping people doing circle work behind the houses.
In fact, there was some havoc there on Saturday out on the road because someone had a pet. Sheep got loose.
In the leash-free area?
In the leash-free area, there was a sheep and there was people in there with poodles and all sorts of dogs and all sorts of mayhem.
Release on it, Mr. Mayor?
I had to grab the sheep. Poor little girls had to stress it.
Randy, Reg?
Yeah, because of his...
If there's no other... sorry, Councillor Duffy, yes.
Yeah, I've got a matter arising. Which
can we finalise the minutes and then come back to the matter arising? Okay, thank you. Just in terms of the minutes before I think there's a small correction required. There is a small correction required on page 40. The item 3.2 was moved by Councillor Munro. I don't think Councillor Munro was definitely not at that meeting. In fact, I don't think he has ever been at a Companion Animals Community Committee meeting. So I'm pretty sure I moved that. So there's just obviously a slight typo there. That should be my name rather than Councillor Munro's name. So if we...
The only motion he's ever moved, and you're going to take it off him.
Well, I think you have to be there to move a motion. Come on. So
that's a technicality.
With that small correction, I'd move that I'd move the motion. Yep. All those in favour, can you raise your hands? Against? Well, it's unanimous, so there's no one against. So thank you. And we have a matter arising from Councillor Duffy.
Arising, Mr. Chairman. I noticed in September there's a grant by the Minister, or made available to councils by Minister Matt Keane as for Minister of Environment, for about cats. And there was $2.5 million available for council to become on some plan. I'm just wondering whether our staff picked up on that, because, I mean, I looked at some horrific figures of what there is, and you look at this 67 million mammals, 80 million birds, 83 million reptiles are killed by feral cats. We've often had this in our city before, where cats running down alleyways and there. You can probably consider it a companion animal. I just wondered if our staff pick up on that and try to get some money, something we've always been trying to push about getting around there. I'm with the Mayor. on the cats. I'll look after them, make sure they're flat.
Yeah.
Mr. Hodges.
I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, but Mr. Hodges?
Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, yes, the staff were working on that. I'll have to take the detail on notice, so I can get back to you on that. The Mayor and I did meet with the Local Land Services Board recently and discussed feral cats as well. But Certainly in relation to the grant program you're talking about, they were investigating it.
And
I certainly won't bring back any of those because I brought back from South Australia that time and put on the mayor's car.
And I'd just like to say that the staff that provide the secretariat support to that committee are very, very dedicated, and there's been a number of grants that have come up in the last 12 months which they have made application for and been successful with. So I think they're pretty on the ball, Councillor Duffy, but it's a good point to raise.
Can I just clarify that for you then? There's already been 10 councillors already nominated as part of it.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. It is a matter that's been taken on notice. So that's the end of the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee as at, I think it's 7:53? 54, is it? Hard to tell. 7:54, and I'll hand over to Councillor Duffy to conduct the Finance Policy Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent, and I declare the Finance Policy Committee open. Apologies and no pecuniary interest announced earlier. I will move straight on to item 2.1, which is the Future City Assistance Fund.
Happy to move the recommendation.
And there's on page 6, there's a recommendation there.
Yeah, happy to move it.
Moved by Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion? I've got a point of clarification. I noticed that none of these applications are signed.
The signatures probably removed.
Is there a reason?
Chair, I'm not sure we've put a place for signatures to be put in.
No, there is.
Isn't it removed because of...
It's been
Yes.
whited out.
text?
Redacted.
Yeah.
Correct, sorry. Thanks, Mr. Hodges.
With redact.
Redacted.
Redaction, is it?
Of course, redaction.
I
Yeah.
looked at the redactions. I must have a look again. But okay, there's been moved. Been seconded. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I guess that was going to lead to a question which I had regarding redaction. I look at the first one, which indicates a grant application from the Greek community of Orange District. Although there's a provision in there for the organisation name of the group or person seeking funding, it's my understanding it's a process that you can't have both the organisation and the name of the person, because if you look at the first one, the name has been redacted, care of the secretary. You can't have both, it must be one or the other.
Through Mr. Chair, yeah, I think it is correct to say we need an organisation, comma, group or person. We will, if council votes to approve this, we will clarify that this money would go to the Greek community of Orange and District rather than a person.
Thank you, that's all. I'll take clarification on that.
Go to the church.
Not unusual.
We'll make sure it is
Goes to the
to
church.
the organisation.
Not unusual. That happens. We've given money for lights program and those type of things.
Yep.
Any discussion? Further discussion? Discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, raise your arm. Unanimous. Next item is it, I think, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes. Item number 2, general reports. What we've done with that. That's it. Now move on to no matters arising. I will hand over to Councillor Munro for Services Policy Committee. The meeting closed at 7:55.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'd like to open the Services Policy Committee 5th of October 21, time being 5 to 8. Councillor, have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interests, less than significant non-pecuniary interests in any listed consideration at this meeting? Not, thank you. Item 2.1, minutes of the NAIDOC.
To move the recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Written and Nugent, thank you. Is there any discussion? Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, just very briefly, the committee continues to meet. A number of the events again this year, unfortunately, have either been postponed, cancelled, postponed or had to be modified to mainly online participation because of the uncertainty to do with COVID. But NAIDOC Week celebrations are certainly going ahead, and it'd be good to see the community support those as much as we possibly can, given the restrictions. But given that things are starting to open up again, there should be opportunities to get involved. So NAIDOC Week is on.
Councillor Nugent, anybody else? Thank you.
My more or less a comment rather than anything else regarding OAMS, Orange Aboriginal Medical Health Centre, and the job that they're doing in their community, especially around this time, COVID, and the challenges that we face. I just think it's important that we acknowledge the work that they're doing, going out in their community and taking testing to the people in their community. I think it's a great thing that not everyone has transport, stuff like that, but they're doing a great job. So I'd just like to acknowledge that.
Write a letter off if you wish. Get it?
I think that'd be good, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, good idea, Mr. Mayor. We put the motion. Thank you, unanimous. Councillor, so I conclude the Services Policy Committee meeting at 8 and hand it back to the Mayor, Reg Kidd.
Very much, Councillor Munro. We move on to item 4, which is notices of motion, notice of decision. Just the second one has been withdrawn. That's the one on fish.
Stocking of fish has been withdrawn by Councillor Munro.
Stocking of fish.
Romano, sorry.
Romano. Drawn. So we've got 4.1. Notice of motion, the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion, if I may, if I've got a seconder.
Second to Councillor Duffy.
Councillor Duffy. Mr. Mayor, it's our annual review each year. I know we've had copious amounts of rain, but it gives the community some continuity that for their good efforts of water security, that Orange City Council continue to support their and give them the time to legally a couple of chores around their houses that they would normally not be allowed to do under the conditions of the water at level 2. Be self-explanatory. We've done it many times. I thank you for your support.
Good.
Get it. Thank you.
I certainly support the motion. I think it's a good one. I guess my question relates to last year, and I'm just wondering whether there's any data or statistics on the usage was around that same period.
Through Mr. Chair, we can obviously
It's
get
easy to
that day-to-day statistic. Don't know offhand, though, I think.
I'm just trying to think.
I was just curious to know.
A lot of the males in Orange forget to tell their wives that this is on.
Yeah, I'd like to, as I said, I second the motion. I'm quite happy to support it 100%, especially when you look at the dam is overflowing. When you look at the last 11 years that we're talking about as regards what the actual residents have been paying, I think there for 3 years in a row, the water rate went up 10%, bang, 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 to raise a lot of money to help pay out that the council needed at the time. And I think it's a great opportunity. Probably a pity we didn't do it a little bit earlier, because when the parents had the students at home, they could have had them doing something, because Nugent said a bit earlier, they were quite happy to get rid of them for a while when they came back. But as I said, it's a good initiative, and we should continue it, especially when the dam's overflowing.
Munro.
Well, look, everybody knows that I sort of tried to relax these ages ago, but I think when the dam's full, we got to relax it. I think people respect it. They always have. They've looked after their water consumption all the way through the drought. Other towns, everybody else has relaxed their minimal or zero. Orange is in a very good place. Probably about this after Christmas. Like people should have a little bit of relax of restrictions for a while where we do have ample water. Once the dam stops running over, well then we can Well, if it's running over and we've got ample water, we shouldn't.
Could I just make a comment on it? This has been in the chamber, and we as a council moved trigger points that we actually have, and I think it's very, very important that we stick to those trigger points. Excellent job. Well, the council's done an excellent job in educating the community and effective use of their water. I think through that, not only realise some of them drinking water as well, but still have a garden, still do everything you normally do without wasting water. And I think the other important thing is that because of our efficiency and effectiveness, that's dragged in an incredible amount of grant state government. It's only to the minister every time we've got a grant of something that's been doing something. I think we could send a wrong message out there if we sort of start saying that, because there's a lot of other users too, just not within the city. It's the downstream users. And the creek's going down. Possibility to. But I think doing this, which we've done nearly every year, I think people do appreciate it. And I don't think anyone abuses it. I don't think too many people out there washing their windows all day or anything like that. I think they're pretty with quick smart. Clean up. The only thing I was going to perhaps suggest, but it's too late now, perhaps we're thinking that's fairly early in October, looking at one weekend in October and one week in November after you've had a bit of weather and you get a bit of dust floating around and people like that.
I'm happy to.
People like to clean that up for Chrissy because they've got kids coming home. Or
I think our wet season is sort of going
extended out.
Extended out. So.
Yeah. But how about we could make that for 2 weekends and we leave it to the staff's discretion and we media when it's coming on? Would that be okay?
I'm happy with that. Because
Did that, Councillor Duffy, is a second? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, yeah, I'm okay with that for it to be 2 weekends with after decide at their discretion what the appropriate weekends might be. I just want to comment briefly about the terminology in terms of relaxing restrictions and even the the wording here, ease the permanent water saving standards. It is important to note that within the permanent water saving standards, it does allow for the annual cleaning to happen once a year. So it's actually really an implementation of the existing permanent water saving standards. And I think those standards, even when the water is overflowing the dam walls, those permanent water saving standards are important to keep in place. And this is almost a way of reminding people that those permanent water saving standards are there. So I think it's a good thing. Happy with the amendment that you're moving, Mr. Mayor.
And if that's right, get them when they do meeting on it to put that with it and suits both the residents best, and because that's something when I was looking at it, I could just imagine when it dries off and say.
Yeah, around Christmas, because they're going to want to clean up.
Yeah,
for Christmas.
Clean up for Chrissy with kids coming home. Is everyone happy with that? All in favour? Against? Thank you very much. General reports, item 5.1, a road closure application, part of Carl Orange.
Happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
So new, second Councillor Turner. All in favour? Hands, please. Against? Much.
Just a point of clarification on that, Mr. Mayor. I assume all service providers and Maybe people being notified.
That would be usual process, yep.
Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
Mr Mayor, there have been no such submissions received.
In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act. It should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting, closed to the press and the public. The items to be considered enclosed are 6.1 Council's Land Portfolio Update. Reason of confidentiality. This item is classified as confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Local Government Act of 1993. Permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. Item 6.2 is the sale of the former road reserve, Ophir Road. The reasons for confidentiality. The item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to DI, commercial information of a confidential nature, that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it. 6.3 is submission redactions. Reasons for confidentiality. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business in relation to E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law. 6.4 is Small Donations Program 2021-22, reconsideration of deferred requests for financial assistance from 2. Reason for confidentiality. This item is classified confidential under provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to DI, commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Staff, can we ask